Welcome back inside the Simplified Technology Solutions Intermissions Report. Austin Bruins taking on the Aberdeen Wings here on Friday night. Before we go ahead and get to the recap of the first period of action, let's go ahead and turn our attention to an interview I had earlier this week with a Bruins defenseman, Ben Dexheimer. Ben's a Minnesota kid growing up in Minnesota and playing a lot of hockey here in the state of hockey. Let's go ahead and hear from him. Ben, thanks so much for taking the time out here on this Thursday night in between games to talk to us. I wanted to give you the chance to say hello to the Austin faithful in person.
Well, thanks for having me on here. It's awesome. It's been awesome down here so far.
Well, let's just start off with that. You know, when you found out that, the Austin Bruins were going to be where you were going to spend your 2020-21 season, were you a little excited about the fact that it was, so close to your home? I mean, being from Edina and just being from this area, did that kind of excite you a little bit, knowing that your parents would get to see some games and that you'd be so close to home?
Of course. I started the year fall 2020 thinking I was going to be all the way across the country, 30, 40 hours away from home. And then those plans kind of got mixed up, and the plan was to come to Austin, and I was pumped. I'm only an hour and a half away from home, get to go home and see my family sometimes on Sundays, and my parents and my brothers have come to some of the games, and it's just awesome. It feels like youth hockey and high school hockey all over again, and just been playing here my whole life, and I don't really want to leave, so I'm glad I got to end up here.
It's kind of like youth hockey, kind of like high school hockey, but on a much larger scale with a lot different competition for sure.
Exactly. Just the feel, like being in Minnesota feels like youth hockey, but the style of play, competition is up so much.
You played for the Blake School for the last 2 years. You also played for the Team TDS Transportation last year as well. And that Team TDS in particular seems to churn out a whole bunch of NAHL players. I mean, there's Grant Aachen and Will Magnuson who are playing for Bismarck. There's a handful of other guys across the league. Does that kind of help you out? Do you enjoy that when you get to see some of your former teammates when we're playing Bismarck or if we're playing Fairbanks or anybody where you might come across a former Team TDS player?
Yeah, it's always fun seeing guys that you grew up playing against them here in junior hockey now. It's just fun seeing them on the ice. And I've played against those guys since I've been in squirt hockey when I was 7, 8 years old, and just kind of comes full circle when now we're 18, 19 years old playing against each other in junior hockey and seeing each other on the ice. It's always a good time.
One of the guys that you played against was just last night, and Blake Messenberg, who is with the St. Cloud Norsemen. Was there a little bit of chirping going on as that game was obviously, there's a lot of emotions in that game on both sides. Was a little bit of chirping between you and the former teammate?
No, it's all love between all of us. I knew Johnny Myers on that team. I knew Perbix, Warner, Messenberg, all of them really good buddies of mine, and played against them, played with them in the summer, a lot of them. And it's as I said, it's always good to see him on the ice. And yeah, really good to see him.
How are you adjusting to the town of Austin so far? Obviously a small town, 25,000 people. Is it a lot different than Edina? I know I'm not a Minnesota guy, so as I ask this question, there's probably a lot of people who are listening and going, what's he talking about? But I want to hear this from my own personal experience. Is it a little bit different here in Austin versus Edina? And are you adjusting to the differences?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Austin's about half the size of Edina. I think there's about 50,000 people there, and you can just tell it's such a tight-knit community here in Austin. And I mean, I know we only have 250 fans a lot at the game, but even with the limited number, you can tell the town's just really passionate about the sport and passionate about the team. And at Edina, everyone's kind of just on their own program, I feel like, and trying to get to the next step. Where here, everyone is just in love with the game, whether you're playing or whether you're in the stands. And it shows because this town is awesome. I love it here.
Well, you talk about the next step, and the next step for you is the University of Miami, Ohio. How did that all come about, and what made you think, as a Minnesota kid, what made you go to Ohio for college as your next step?
I went on a few visits, and Miami, I was there, and the big thing for me is the academic side of college, and it's not just hockey, because in my opinion, that'll get me the farthest. And Miami's a really good school, and I loved the campus, loved the facilities there, and I thought that was the best fit for my game and my hockey career, and that was the decision I made.
What is your game? If you had to describe your game and what style defenseman you are and what you bring to this Austin Bruins team, what would you say that is?
I'd say I'm a high-tempo, puck-moving defenseman who likes to get in the offense, but can also be locked down defensively if you need me. And I feel like just bringing that high pace, speed all the time is something that I bring to the table.
You're definitely one of those guys that seems so poised, and you play a little bit bigger than your size because you're not the traditional big defenseman like a Cullen Rush or a Travis Shouty or a Cam Gallagher for that matter. You're a little bit smaller, but you play with a lot of poise. You play with a lot of control. Is that something that you've had to kind of learn to do and to play to your strengths as a smaller defenseman?
Yeah, I've been little kind of my whole life, kind of recently had my growth spurt, and just being smaller on the ice, you got to act like you're bigger than you actually are and get in guys' faces. And I feel like that's helped me in the long run, just with body positioning on the ice. And you always have to be in the right spot, because if you're not, then those bigger guys when you're younger will just outmuscle you and there's nothing you can do. So being in the right spot all the time was something I had to learn. And I'd say being little kind of my whole life helped me for sure in the long run, just being aggressive, getting in guys' faces, got to be chippy, always aware. And I like that. I think that I benefited from that a lot.
As a first year junior player, how are you? Who's helping you out, and how's this veteran leadership on this team really kind of guiding you and teaching you the way of junior hockey as you kind of start and get used to it and begin your junior career?
I'd say defensively, Frank DeVorny has really helped me out, and he's a guy that I look up to a lot on this team because obviously he's a really good player, but he's also just a really good teammate and showing me the ropes. But the junior hockey lifestyle, I think like Riddle and Milmock, those guys are really helping me out too, and just getting adjusted. And I don't even really feel like a first year guy anymore. I feel like just part of the team, and now we're finding our groove a little bit, and we're going to keep going from here.
Well, averaging just shy of half a point per game so far in your first 23 games, I'd say you're settled in pretty good, and obviously looking to see things take off here for the whole team as we go forward. But I appreciate the time here tonight, and we're going to probably cycle through the roster at least one more time before the end of the season, so we'll definitely have you back on. And the next time we have you back on, I'm going to ask you a question now so that we can kind of revisit it later on. Do you have any goals for yourself set for the end of the year? That way, when you come to the end of the year, you look back and you go, you know what, my first year in juniors, I hit my goals. And what might those goals be for you?
Obviously the team goals is to make playoffs and win the whole thing, but I think individual goals would be just feeling that at the end of the year I played to my best ability. And I think that obviously you want to get points, but playing your game and getting points will come with that if you're playing the game the right way. But yeah, just feeling like I did what I am able to do the whole year and not going anywhere below that.
Well, we're going to check in with you later on this year and see exactly see where you sit at that point. Thanks, Ben, so much for the time here tonight, and go on out there and get them. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
That was Bruins defenseman Ben Dexheimer. Stay tuned. We got plenty more on the Simplified Technology Solutions Intermissions Report coming up after this. Stay tuned. This is Austin Bruins Hockey on Power 96 and Hockey TV.